Hey students, it's Mrs. Castro again. This is going to be my last series of my infamous videos for you guys because I can never finish lecture. So here we go. Let's finish up with cardiac catheterization. Hopefully I can do this in 15 minutes. We'll see. This is very near and dear to my heart, I think, as you know already. So yesterday we got as far as pre-procedure, but I'm just going to do a quick review. It's used for angiography or mapping of the arteries and vessels of the heart. You can do a you can use it to diagnose or to do therapeutic procedures. This can be done on all age groups, from little tiny babies that have just been born all the way up to the elderly or the geriatric population. And you can do a left heart catheterization or a right heart. Usually people undergo a left heart catheterization if we're just looking at visualization of the coronary arteries. Right is more so used for diagnostics in babies and for surgical clearance. Risk of procedure. We talked about each one of these and why they might occur. MI, stroke, arterial bleeding, can actually have a heart attack, can have an ischemic stroke, and can have kidney failure. We can send the heart into a lethal dysrhythmia and the patient could die. So this is a very risky procedure, albeit we have decreased the occurrence of risks over time by very careful selection of patients who go to the cath lab and very thorough pre-procedure assessments. So remember that pre-procedure, we need to make sure that we get an informed consent, that we assess the patient, assess their labs, specifically our H&H and platelets, our BMP for BUN and creatinine. Want to take a look at those electrolytes, which tend to cause dysrhythmias. Also, I don't think I mentioned this last night, so your magnesium and potassium are also important. Sometimes if they're not within normal limits, physicians will order replacement of those before we take the patient into the cath lab, depending on the nature of the procedure, if we have time. And then we will teach the patient about their discharge planning, how they cannot drive themselves home, that they will have to lie flat for 2 to 6 hours afterwards. They cannot move the expected extremity if it's a leg. If it's an arm, they have this radial band on it, and I have that a little bit further down. So they can move and walk and stuff, but they'll still be under observation for several hours. If we encounter any problems, they may have to stay longer, so always come prepared to stay overnight. Should we have to do, should they continue bleeding and we have to hold pressure for longer, or we do an intervention. So intra-procedure, our nursing considerations. Oh shoot, I don't think I wrote anything down there in my notes, sorry. So our intra-procedure considerations, if you're a nurse working in the cath lab, and this is just FYI, you don't need to necessarily memorize this or anything like that for the test, it's just so you know. So within the procedure, the nurse's responsibility can include 1 or 2 nurses. What we'll do is we hook the patient to the cardiac monitors, we shave the groin area with an electric razor because it reduces the risk of infection over shaving with a straight blade razor, because a straight blade razor can cause nicks and cuts in the skin that are micro cuts and increase the risk for infection. So we do use an electric razor to shave the groin area. We do once that's cleaned up, we skin prep with chlorhexidine, which is done either by the scrub tech or the nurse, depending, kind of like they do in surgery. When the patient is draped and ready, the physician will come in and the procedure will begin. We begin with a timeout, and any assessment findings, for example, the physician may walk in and we'll let them know, hey, the patient's heart rate is 45, so, or whatever, and he or she may decide to give a different amount of sedation based on your assessment findings. So you do a quick head-to-toe assessment. I guess I should have mentioned that. If you're not the nurse that did the pre-procedure teaching, then when the patient gets to you in the cath lab, you do a quick head-to-toe, you check pulses, and peripherally, you do the Allen's test. You would do those right at when the patient is laying on the table like this in the cath lab. And so we've communicated our assessment findings to the physician. We provide moderate sedation, which you can do as an RN when you have ACLS training and depending on the needs of your facility as far as their requirements. And then you monitor the patient's level of consciousness, the level of sedation, and airway, breathing, circulation, very important. And another nurse should do the circulation because you cannot monitor the patient and circulate at the same time. So circulating includes if the doctor needs a different catheter or a piece of equipment fell off the table or became contaminated, you know, you would go get that for them, or you would support the nurse that is monitoring the patient. You also would administer any drugs as needed, thrombolytics, or antiplatelets during the procedure. And then if we're giving heparin, you will also monitor ACT, which is, cannot remember at this moment what it stands for, but basically it's a quick test that tells us how coagulated the blood is when we're giving heparin during the procedure. So these are all the things that you get to do when you're a cath lab nurse. And of course, if the patient should code you in there, you would run the code with everybody. So here is just like a little infograph, and we have our patient, and this is probably the physician. They usually stand closest to the head, and then the scrub tech stands next to the physician. And this one, they have two scrub techs, so he's a important doctor there. This is a beautiful, I have down here, it's in my notes, it's a beautiful cardiac catheterization laboratory. So, it's beautiful. So the patient lies on the table here. We have our contrast dye injector. These are controls to move the table here. We have, this is our fluoroscopy camera, and it rotates from left to right. And can give us different views, and it looks like they even have one going the other way too, probably to help with vascular procedures. And then all this equipment up here is so that you can move the camera. You can move it on the side. This big part swings around on the side. You can, all these attachments, you can bring it down however you need it. And this one has these beautiful surgical lights as well that are focused right on where the patient's groin would be. All these cameras show all the different views of the heart so that they can be working in real time on their x-ray fluoroscopy video, and right next to it have a still picture of what they just took. Their monitors are here in terms of they can see all the pressures that they're taking as they're taking them. This one, it looks like they maybe have the patient's echo up there, so this is pretty sweet, pretty fitted up. Here's all their stents in here, and just different supplies. Looks like all stents in there. And as you can see, the crash carts are over here. What I don't see in this picture is the cardiac monitor for the patient. Usually that would be pretty close. There, maybe that's part of the setup over here. Oh my gosh, look at guys, this is an anesthesia setup right there. Man, I want to find out where this cath lab is and go work there. I also am going to include a video link. I found this video on YouTube, and it's a really good one. A start to finish, you can watch an angiogram. So that might be fun if you're interested in watching that. So after the procedure, this one shows that they are removing an arterial sheath, which is this green one here, and the color just depends on the brand. So they must have been doing a right and left heart cath on this patient, because they removed the arterial sheath there. What was the point I was going to make here? So on this one, I guess what I wanted you to see is that, do you see how the physician probably poked the patient? If you could see the hole, it's probably right underneath. Probably a she, looks like a nicer ring there. She poked him way down here. So why is she holding up here? Well, if we look at a cross section of the skin here, and we go in at this 45-degree angle, which is called modified Scheldinger's technique, the hole in the artery is actually going to be way down here, about an inch. So whenever you have a patient that's bleeding, and you need to hold manual pressure on the femoral artery, you hold about 2 centimeters or an inch above the insertion site because of Scheldinger's technique. So when this patient comes to us, this is the big part I want to focus on, guys. Two things. I want you to know the pre-procedure assessments. What should you do? What's your nursing responsibilities there? And then know your post-procedure. So your post-procedure nursing responsibilities include vital sign monitoring, which is routine is every 15 minutes times 4, then every 30 minutes times 4, then every hour times 4. We do our neurovascular assessment, so that includes your actually 6 Ps, because you're also going to be checking for, hang on, I need to see it before I can pronounce it, the poikilothermia. So that's your warmth. So we check for, are you having any pain? Do we have a peripheral pulse? So we check our dorsalis pedis and our post-tibial pulses. We check for pallor to see, because that's going to tell us about perfusion as well, paresthesia, if they have any numbness or tingling, and then paralysis if they're able to move. And then with every set of vital signs, we perform our neurovascular assessment, and we also check the groin. We monitor the patient, keep them on a cardiac monitor so we can monitor their heart rhythm, make sure they don't go into any lethal dysrhythmias afterwards. Keep flat if they were poked in the groin. Our plan of care includes keeping the patient in bed for at least 4 to 6, well, 2 to 6 hours afterwards. It just depends on your physician. It depends on how coagulated the patient is. And also if an angioseal or like closure device was used to close up the area between the skin and the artery. If the patient needs to sit up a little bit over time, we can put them in a reverse Trendelenburg position to sit them up but still keep their body flat. It may, if they had a radial catheterization done, we may have to release that radial band, which is like a pressure dressing. And I have some pictures on the next slide. And then depending on where we work, you may have to pull the sheath. So one of the things that I got to do as a student was to monitor their PTT, because they had gotten a, who is he, guys? I'm sorry. A stent, and they were on the cardiovascular unit, and we had the sheath still in because the patient was too hypercoagulated, so they had a lot of heparin. So we were waiting for the heparin levels, or for our PTT values to come down. So I got to draw blood off the sheath as a student and send it off to the lab, and then when it finally came back at the end of my shift that it was okay, then Jeff and I pulled the sheath. So that was a lot of fun. And I got to hold pressure and all that. So here's some pictures for you. I know you're like, oh my gosh, can't believe Ms. Castro showed pictures like this. So this is showing, this person actually had a different kind of procedure done. They had a catheterization, but it wasn't for coronary reasons. But this is basically what it would look like, our 4x4 with our dressing over top of it. And so what you do is you look at it, inspect the dressing, is it clean and dry, inspect around it, make sure there's no blood like oozing out, and then you would just use your fingers to palpate gently around the groin area to make sure there's no hematoma. You ask the patient a lot about back pain, because our biggest risk here that we can't see that happens really fast is a retroperitoneal bleed, and I'll get into that in a minute here. This is an example of a radial band. These are both the same kind of radial cuffs that I'm used to. And what you do is you, just like a Foley balloon or a pressure bag, you attach a syringe and put air into it, and then you hold more pressure. Here at BBRMC, we have these little plastic bands. They kind of look like a watch band, and you just release the watch band a little bit. But you can see this is probably when the physician was taking it out right there. And this is them putting a bandage over the sheath. So this patient was probably sent to the ICU or to the floor like that with the sheath in. This is somebody having a test done, but this is just to show you what reverse Trendelenburg looks like. And you can, this is about a 45, well, no, about 30-degree angle. You wouldn't quite set them up that much because they're going to start to slide out of the bed. As you can see, this patient has their feet on there. This is probably for a test for orthostatic hypotension, which is really fun to do. Got to do those before. So I only have like a minute. I just wanted to tell you guys a really funny story about this. So was working in the cath lab, and I was preparing the T-band for the physician to put on after he was finishing the radial, and he was checking for perfusion to make sure that the artery was still patent, and so he let his finger off of the radial artery and sprayed me from head to toe with blood. And it just, you know, it was whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So it got me a good 2 or 3 whooshes before he realized that he needed to stop it. So anyways, very important to hold pressure afterwards. That's my point. Next video, we'll get into complications and your monitoring for that, okay?